Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook. We're a little bit late this week, but whatever, y'all are still listening. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at Drew Dotson NFL. With me is my co-host, as always, Eric. You can find him on Twitter at UT. I always want to say UTH because
That's funny. Yeah, you can't find me there.
At Utah EC. It's got all the letters, but you keep throwing in extra vowels and stuff. And
Extra vowels.
I can't deal with all that.
Hey,
it's almost like Utah's a state and UTH is just this weird acronym.
Oh, man, I'm excited to be back. I apologize that we're late. A lot of this is my fault. I've been traveling on business a lot lately, and you can probably tell that I'm a little ill with my voice. So I think we're going to keep it short tonight. We're not going to be so waiver wiry just because, it's later in the week. You probably already ran your waiver wire. So I think we're going to talk a lot of Dynasty. The thing I kind of wanted to cover right off the bat is I wanted to cover a few guys. I ended up pinch hitting for our boy Sticky over at Dynasty League Football, the waiver wire article. A couple guys worth talking about. I guess that first one is Corey James, Oakland. Ben Heaney lost the green dot. It fell off his helmet by accident. I don't know what happened, but Malcolm Smith found his green dot. But Corey James actually got 74 snaps last week. Dude's good in coverage. So he actually has a strong suit, unlike Ben Heaney, who doesn't really have any suits to speak of. I like Corey James, and he's got 4.6 wheels, 35-inch vert. He ran a sweet 6.65 three-cone. He's probably snagged up already, but he's interesting. And with Carl Joseph, he got on the field. I think we're going to talk about the safeties, but that defense actually stepped up this week a little bit. I like the changes they made. So thoughts on Heaney and Corey?
Corey, legit to me, wasn't even hardly on my radar, and Heaney, I feel like we talked about him either last week or the week before that, and he's just. I feel like we've all talked about him as a sell, or at least you, me, Tyler, Breeze.
Yeah,
and he's kind of showing why. I mean, I didn't expect it to come this soon. I figured we'd see it, at least another week down the road.
I thought we'd have a full season of him. Wow, it came quick. I'm glad I got out.
Yeah, I said a week down the road. I meant to say a season down the road. I figured we'd at least get a year out of him being kind of legit.
Yeah.
And you say Corey James is probably already snagged up. There is a deep league that I'm in with a lot of, the guys we do these IDP leagues with where he is not owned.
Wow.
Yep. And there's another one that's got smaller rosters, and I hate that league so very much, where he's also not owned. But
Corey James is a nice snag.
That's a good one. You got me there.
So somebody I wanted to talk to you about is Stephon Anthony. He showed up on the box score just a little bit, probably not enough to get on people's radars yet, but he jumped up to 33 snaps. And, Craig Robertson is the darling right now, leading the league in tackles, everyone's favorite waiver wire guy that's startable. But now we have Anthony getting snaps. We have Ellerbe possibly coming back. Tell me what's going on with your Saints.
Oh, dude, fuck if I know. Legit, I think the reason we saw a lot more snaps with Anthony this week is because Vaccaro was out. So with Bell and Bird only the ones being able to play safety, we had Anthony kind of being that third safety in coverage just because that's one of his strengths. But as for Ellerbe and Robertson, I don't see it making sense for them to bench Robertson right now.
Yeah.
And I also can't approach this rationally because I've hated Ellerbe for a very long time, and I became irrationally upset when we traded for him and took on his big fat-ass contract.
Right.
But I like Robertson. I'm still starting him this week.
Well, what's interesting is I have a league, you're familiar with it, NLPB1. I am not competitive in that league due to Adrian Peterson breaking a leg or whatever the heck he did. Jamal Charles not working out. Sammy Watkins not working out. My problem, I thought that team was going to compete again this year, but it's just decimated with injuries. So I'm probably getting out, and I've tried to sell Robertson, and I can't get a ham sandwich for him, man.
I think it's because everybody in the league is all kind of the same mindset. Like IDP is fairly easy to to dig up every year. Grab a deep guy during the draft.
It's crazy for you to say that in a league where we have 70 roster spots, and we think the waiver wire is still mineable.
Oh no, I don't think anybody thinks the waiver wire is mineable. I think it's more so they think that
they have enough on their roster.
They have enough chances to get a rookie who's going to end up getting snaps, or just with the rotation, everybody going in free agency, leaving, that eventually they'll pick up another guy that will be able to price that, and they just don't see him as a long-term option, so they'd see it as a really short-term rental, and they don't even know if it's going to be even. They don't even know if it's going to be a wise investment for this year alone, because we haven't had to see him share snaps with Ellerby yet. Right.
I mean, we're definitely going to see this week with them all on the field. It'll be very interesting. Robertson could be worth nothing, or it could be, his value could actually be solidified after this week. We'll know for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to watch it after what happened this past week. Dude, all right. That's honestly, we were supposed to record on Monday.
Yeah.
And Eric forgot, and I was so just destitute that I had no interest in talking about anything. I was just I can normally handle a loss fairly well, but when we lose to the Falcons at home, that's a bad day for me. I try not to get. I used to get really emotionally invested, and it would a loss would ruin my day. My wife wouldn't want to be around me, and I kind of got past that. But no, it on top of getting Les Miles getting fired that same week, it was just football was not my buddy.
Hey, that means you're a real fan, man. That's all that means.
Oh.
All right, so we'll do a little bit more just waiver wire kind of guys, and then we'll move on. But one guy that's hot on the wire this week is Jatavis Brown. We talked about Jatavis Brown earlier in the year. I did a mock draft. I think it was a pre-draft IDP mock, and our boy IDP with B took Jatavis Brown with the 12th pick. It kind of stunned everybody, but he knew what he was looking for. I like Jatavis at Akron. I mean, the kid's got moves. He's just a little small, but he's played well in run defense. So this has been the sexy pickup. But Perriman is really the real benefactor here. Perriman's going to be on the field all the time. Jatavis was probably going to work in. I don't know if he's still going to be a full-time guy. It may take another injury. And then we have the looming Josh Perry. Is now the time to buy Josh Perry? Is now the time to sell Jatavis Brown? What do you think, Drew?
I'm not the right person to ask about this, because I think Joshua Perry is dog shit.
You're probably in the rarity, because I know a lot of people that really like him, and I'm surprised by it. I don't think he's a bad linebacker, but I don't see anything special either.
I mean, I'm not a fan of him as a linebacker in general, but he's also going to be playing outside, which for most of your leagues, it's not going to produce enough stats to be IDP usable anyways. So I've just had zero interest in him at all. As for Brown,
you don't think they'll use him inside and him and Jatavis split?
They might have to.
Yeah.
With the Teo injury, but I really see him as more of an outside guy.
Right. Okay.
But I do like Brown a decent bit more than Perry. I think Brown's gonna see enough snaps to make him at least like a flex starter for right now, until we kind of see how Perriman and if Perry ends up getting snaps inside. And I might just be an asshole for talking about him at outside, because I just looked up the Roto World depth charts that our buddy Breeze just puts hours and hours into every week, and they've got him as the third inside on the depth chart. So, and that's after the Teo injury.
Well, I mean, Pagano really will use guys however he wants. If you watch him run, he'll run a 4-3 over. He'll run a 4-3 under. They're a base 3-4. He'll do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of wherever he's at, I'm still not that much of a fan of the talent. I think Brown will, just by virtue of being the better player, will earn more snaps.
Are you selling Perryman right now? Is now the time to get out on Perryman? I think Perryman's a mediocre linebacker. He's not Manti Te'o bad, and he's not elite.
Hey.
I just did that on purpose.
I know you did. Between you and Bill throwing shade at fucking Teo.
Hey,
He
he
can't even play and
actually
defend
played okay
himself.
this year
That's right.
until he blew up his leg.
Yeah, that happened.
Wait, so you didn't answer my question. If you own Perryman, are you trying to sell him right now?
No.
Okay.
Not because I think he's going to be this super awesome long-term asset, because I don't. I think he's short-term completely. But I'm going to wait until he shows strongly for a week or two and then sell him instead of trying to sell him on the potential hype.
Yeah. But if you're competing, I think it would be tough to sell him too, even after he has a few blowout games. But we'll see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're competing, I'm kind of riding whoever's doing well to the grave, if that's what it takes, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think. Like if I have Matt Forte right now, I would be hard pressed to not take. I mean, to not sell him for a first, or however that sentence works, where I wouldn't take a first for him, even though, you know, in the offseason, if somebody offered me a first for Matt Forte, I'd have been doing backflips. But if I've got a competing team and I'm riding him as my RB1, I don't think I could trade him for a first. But maybe I could. It would depend on where the first looked, but that's kind of where I sit with competing teams. It's really hard for me to sell off good assets.
Yeah. So we're recording Thursday night. The Miami-Cincinnati game's going on right now, so we can kind of talk about this game right off the bat. And I have a small dance to do, but a lot of people have been on Neville Hewitt since we heard Jelani Jenkins might not play, and we knew Koa Misi. Thank you.
Koa Misi.
Yay. Koa Misi. We knew those guys were going to be out.
I just, as a real quick pause, it's still not as bad as Bill Layton dropping a Indomitian
The hate.
I'm throwing shade. He started it.
He started. You guys.
He did. He's throwing bad things.
He's a nice guy. He gave you a shout out.
He is a great person, and
he is a great guy.
He did give me a shout
out. He gave you a shout out.
But he's also throwing shade at my boys. So, and he's talking bad about Anthony.
Nice. Roto-World actually came out with a blurb and said Paysinger and Donald Butler were going to start, and we kind of knew Hewitt was going to start because he got a lot of the snaps last week. It looks like Hewitt's taking the lion's share. Him and Butler are trading off. Kiko Alonso is getting the big workload, but Paysinger's seeing a little bit. So maybe Hewitt isn't as big as we thought, but there's some appeal because he's really one of the only youthful pieces of this linebacking core.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso is still fairly young, even though it feels like he's not because he's been everywhere.
It does feel like he's really old.
And I'm actually pretty sure he came in kind of old, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't mind gambling on Hewitt, but I really don't know at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's a stash. If you're starting him, then you're playing a pretty insanely deep league. I mean, not just deep league. We got a question on Twitter about him earlier, and you have to play in like a 32-team league or something insane to be thinking that you need to start him.
Right. Like, I feel like our leagues it doesn't get a whole lot deeper than our leagues, and I wouldn't even consider starting him at this point.
Yeah. So the Cincinnati side is the other side that's going on. We're seeing Burfict play a lot, but we're seeing Ray and Dansby only getting rotational snaps. What are you thinking is going on here, and how do you feel about Burfict?
All right, so the reason we're bringing up Burfict is I was chatting in the Voxer group earlier, and I let out my hot take about Vontaze Burfict, and Breeze called me a fucking moron. And, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I said something stupid. But this was when we were watching Burfict kind of swap out a little bit earlier in the game, just because, you know, it's his first game back since early in the preseason. So I said Burfict is still a top 15 linebacker if he's only getting 60% of the snaps.
Oh.
And Breeze said Kuechly isn't a top 15 linebacker without 60% of the snaps. And I said, I don't care. Burfict is... If Burfict was not an idiot, if Burfict did not just... He goes out there and does hood rat shit. And as much fun as that can be to do with your friends, you can't do it on a football field. If he was if he was a shiny golden boy and didn't get in trouble like Kuechly does, or Kuechly doesn't get in trouble. If Perfect was like that, he'd be in the Kuechly Luvante David conversation.
So I don't know what's going on here. I'm looking at the box score as we record, and it looks like Dansby has shot up in the box score, and his snap count has jumped up since last time I looked. It looks like all four of these guys are splitting snaps right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because they were talking. I mean, if they're limiting
the most, but it's starting to even out. Where at halftime it was really just Perfect and Ma'aluga.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you on that one. Perfect is 1 tackle, 1 assist, and 1 pass defended right now. So, I mean, not a great game, but at the same time, they've completely shut down Miami's offense. I mean, they haven't, more so because Cincinnati's offense has been on the field for so much of this game.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in terms of like total tackles between the team, he's not having a horrible game.
Well, and maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe we're into garbage time, and that's why we're seeing more Dansby.
Yeah, what's the score even right now? Yeah,
22-7 in the 5 minutes left in the fourth. So
yeah, and Tannehill just got picked off. So it's going to be wonky box score, but
we'll move off this game. One guy we wanted to talk about. Go ahead.
Before we move off of Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I have to have a fall on my sword moment, because I told Tyler on the show. I think that might be the one that you did with us. That I said Nick Vigil would be an LB2 at some point during Perfect's suspension. That shit did not happen at all. His defensive snaps so far. I mean, this was at halftime when we went through it, but he had 1 snap week 1, 0 snaps week 2, 5 snaps week 5, and none this week.
Yeah, well, he does have a special teams assist. Let's not get crazy. So if you play in a league where you only get credit for special team tackles, watch out for Vigil.
Wow. That was savage. I'm not going to lie.
Sorry.
But I overreacted to his short-term potential. I still think, I mean, give him a year. Malaluga and Ray are not these oppressive talents to overcome. And Dunlap is 96.
I think that's close. I'll look that up.
He's pretty fucking old. He's not going to be, just this lockdown guy. I think he's older than Pozlesny is.
Wow. Are you ready for this?
Oh, if it makes me sound super stupid, I'm gonna be mad.
He turns 28 in February.
Jeez.
February. There you go. I can't even pronounce the month correctly. Get me sticky. Make fun of me.
Oh.
Yeah. It does feel like he's really old though, right?
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. He looks like a baby in this picture though.
And maybe it's because every time I hear Dunlap and Dansby, I think of the same person.
Yeah.
Even though they're not close to the same person. I don't know. I just made a jackass out of myself. So that's probably why you shouldn't trust my IDP opinions like Nick Vigil, and I don't know anything about Dunlap. So, or Dunlap, Dansby. Fuck.
See, I looked up Dunlap. You confused me too. Sorry. Dansby is 34.
Okay, cool.
He is old.
I was right.
I was curious. I'm like, why am I looking up Dunlap?
I was dumb and smart at the same time.
I was just going along with you. All right.
Yeah, I mean that's probably never a smart idea, actually.
Yeah, let's move on. Can we move off this game now?
We really should.
Okay, excellent. So I wanted to talk about Stuart Cravens, who's been a very hot topic on Twitter, Voxer groups, really any IDP league. Everyone seems to have strong takes. Either you hated him in the pre-draft process or you loved him. And sometimes people got in love with him because of the safety connotation. Some people just liked his tape, period. Some people hated his tape. I was actually in the I'm not really impressed with this guy in the pre-draft process. I didn't think he was going to be a safety either because I thought he was probably a little slow. but his snap count is going up 17, 20, 29. What's going on here, Drew?
I mean, I think we kind of broke it down in before we started recording, and that's he's starting to get more nickel snaps. I think it was over Foster that he's getting these snaps, and it makes sense. I mean, he's strong in pass defense. Why would you not use him to his strengths? And I was one of those guys that I really liked Cravens in the pre-draft process, and part of it was the appeal of kind of not exactly the position flexibility, because I figured he'd probably settle in at linebacker, but I was hoping that he'd get safety designation. But I like him as a linebacker, to be honest. Yeah. I think he's a really talented player. I mean, there was a reason he was drafted so highly. And that kind of solidified my opinion, is watching the NFL kind of agree with me or agree with the people that were high on him, because they didn't just agree with me. I don't want to sound conceited or anything.
Well, the tough thing is, I don't think you're going to see him moved in any leagues, because the people that were high on him drafted him crazy high. And if you're just warming up to him, you can't pay enough to get him, and they're not selling him. So, unless something massively changes, Cravens isn't moving rosters.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There are onesies and twosies out there that will have a change of heart that quickly on a player they drafted, but most likely that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, if you drafted him, you're just sitting back saying, I told you so right now.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, it's not like an interception saved his week, even with more snaps.
Right.
He's getting snaps, but he's still not showing up at the box score. So I would hold off on tooting your own horn if you were behind Cravens for a little while. But I am going to give another quick shout out to Bill Layton. He does the DFW IDP Blitz podcast, and he's kind of taken opposite positions on us on like Cravens and Anthony. But there's a lot of good info on there, and they are a lot more structured than we are. We're kind of it's kind of a shit show here. It just happens as we decide to make it happen. Whereas they're like meticulous. They go through, they hit details, and that's that's too much fucking work, to be honest. Yeah. It's like, can I just go and like look at each player and be like, yeah, I like him. Next question.
Nice. All right, I want to move on to Tahir Whitehead. I think it's time to sell him if you're not competing. Look, we're in week 4. I think you can take a look at your team and say, am I going to turn this around, or am I competing this year? I think it's time to get out on Whitehead if you're not competing, because I think you can sell him for a reasonable price. Competing teams can use Whitehead. The opportunity's there. I just don't know how long of an asset, long-term of an asset he is. True?
I tend to agree with you, but the problem with IDP players, and we're going to hit on this a little bit more later, is getting proper value for them. I mean, if you're selling Whitehead right now, I know you've got a couple of rosters that are competing. If you have Whitehead on them, what is the lowest you take for him? Would you take a 4th round pick for him?
So I just did the opposite on a team I'm not competing with. I traded Whitehead for a 4th. That's a no player left behind league.
Yeah.
What would I take if I'm not competing, or if I'm competing? I'm confused.
Pretty much what you just said. You traded him for a 4th.
I traded him for a 4th, because to me, if I know I'm not competing, that's just points on my roster, and I don't see him. I'm questioning whether he's going to be useful to me next year. So give me a 4th. I am relatively confident in my talent evaluation. I think I've done some things with some 4th rounders. I feel like I could do something with this.
Yeah, I think a 4th rounder would be about my cutoff. I don't think I would take a 5th for him. If I'm competing and I'm just like I say, I had Teo starting, or I don't know what other linebackers have died. Nobody else has really died. If I've just got guys that have been disappointing, I'd probably pay a 3rd, but I probably wouldn't go higher than that.
Third's rich, man.
If you're competing, you're looking at
I get it,
an almost 4th round pick.
Yeah, I think you could. I would go if I was competing. I might go get Robertson instead, and you're going to get him cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I'm saying,
Yeah.
specifically for Whitehead. If he's the only guy I can acquire, I'd pay a third for him. And let's just kind of
price is about right. Just to drive this really home is that when I sent the offer out to the 4 top best teams in the league, and I got 2 immediate fuck offs, and then I got an accept, which means his price is right about there.
Right. Yeah. Let's skip down a little bit and kind of hit the player that's part of this same conversation. Yeah. And that's Tony Jefferson.
Right.
You brought him up because you've got him on the roster. You're not competing on where you're wanting to sell him.
Yeah. A lot of these conversations come up because the league I'm not competing in is that I'm basically just trying to sell assets now because I know I'm not going to compete because my team's decimated. So let's go get value now, because if you wait 6 or 7 weeks, I think you have less suitors. I think you have more suitors now because there's, the top 6 teams in the league normally think they can win it still. So that's more suitors. So I sent out Tony Jefferson for a second to all these guys, and no player left behind, where Tony Jefferson has scored roughly 90 points so far in 3 weeks, 90 points. And I'm getting very little bites, which is surprising. And I think this drives home the point that, it's really hard to send a second round pick on a really good defensive back. I don't care if they're Keanu O'Neal or Carl Joseph. You can't spend a second round pick on them because you can't get that value back. I mean, it doesn't get much. I mean, Jefferson's 24. He's destroying the box score. There's not much more you can get.
No, I mean, yeah, I would be pretty happy with a second. I think Rashad Jones is the only safety out there I would comfortably trade a second to get
right
on a strong roster.
Well, and I'm not going to take a third for him. I think that's terrible.
Yeah, because he's still overall a very good player, and he's
gonna be a good player. It's not like he's gonna go away in 2 years, and unless he destroys his knee or something.
Right. I mean, the only reason we haven't seen more of him is because that whole fucking Arizona defense is stacked. Everybody's fighting each other for tackles, and just his usage this year has made him able to kind of capitalize on that.
Yeah.
But if you want to really get an idea of how well he's doing, the only players in the NFL that have scored better than him are Drew Brees and Matt Ryan. He's outscored every running back, every wide receiver, every linebacker, every defensive lineman.
And he's 24, and I can't get a second for him.
Exactly.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
If I was competing, I'd probably be willing to pay a second for him. Actually, I'm almost positive I would pay a second for him with our level of scoring.
Here's what drives it home even more. Tyler's competing, and Tyler loves safeties. And he won't do the deal.
I think that's just Tyler loves to try and find cheap safeties. And I mean, we can't stream safety here, but I think Tyler also loves picks a lot.
Yeah.
And that might be one of those ones where you hold him for a few more weeks. And you're not going to have as many potential trade partners, but you're going to have guys that are like, okay, if I'm going to make a run, I really need to strengthen my safety position, right?
Well, and I was actually on the fence about it because I think my squad's still gonna. I mean, the reason my team's not competing isn't because it absolutely sucks. It's really because I got destroyed by injuries, and I'm not sure with the length of those injuries whether I can turn it around fast enough. So I don't have a problem keeping him on my roster longer. I mean, I'm on the fence because I can use him next year. But anyway,
right. I mean, if you want, I'll trade you some sick ass Carlos Hyde.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay. All right. Let's move on to some other safeties. I want to move on to the Cleveland safeties. We have Derek Kindred and Jordan Poyer. So Poyer actually got the big box score. This is kind of a is he legit? And I originally said, don't be fooled by this. Kindred is the strong safety here. But Breeze watched this game pretty closely, and he's telling us that Poyer was actually in the box more than Kindred. Do you have any thoughts here, Drew?
I'm actually on this one. I'm going to defer to Breeze because he's probably dug into this better than any of the rest of us have. But these are both technically free safeties, and Cleveland's their usage is changing as the season changes. So trying to bet without having watched every snap I'm not comfortable doing so.
Yeah, it's weird to me because Kindred looks. I mean, I went back and watched his college film, and he looks more like a strong safety to me. But
Yeah.
We've done weirder things before.
Yeah, and that's how I felt about Darian Thompson, and he ended up getting drafted somewhere where there was absolutely no chance he's playing strong safety.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with Von Bell. I mean, it's not like he's going to push over Vaccaro.
Right.
And this what's going on with Von Bell right now is really an ideal situation for his early career IDP potential.
Yeah. I mean, there's a pretty big BMI difference between these two. Kindred is 5'10", 210, and Poyer is 6 foot, 191. It's interesting to me. I'd still bet on Kindred being the strong, even though Breeze has watched it, but that's me.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm going to defer to Breeze on this one.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to figure out my schedule so I can sit down and just break down more actual NFL tape.
Yeah,
but it's just the time hasn't been there.
All right, so I'm going to grab my soapbox and drag it over for another safety. Maurice Alexander. Maurice Alexander is really good at football. He plays free safety. I get it. But McDonald may have a suspension coming up, and McDonald's a free agent next year. This guy is going to be the strong safety next year. I think it's locked in. I can't believe he's on so many waiver wires. Get him on your roster. Trust me on this one. I think this is a done deal.
Okay.
You have no comment. Nobody's listening to me on this, and that's fine.
I'm gonna let you have that.
All right.
I don't think they let McDonald walk. He's too good of a safety.
All right.
But if he's as good as you say, maybe they let him walk and let him take over. But I just don't see it happening. Let's finish up with one more safety, and it's a guy I've kind of I've brought up in the past, and that's Miles Killebrew. He's still going to be pretty cheap, except for, in our leagues where every person that drafted him is like in love with him.
Sold on him.
Yeah. Everywhere else where somebody, kind of picked him up with the 6th round pick, he's like, fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
Go after that guy. Go after him because.
I mean, we're seeing the injuries. Raphael Bush is hurt, but Tavon Wilson came in for him. We're seeing the injuries happen. The Killebrew time is coming. It's coming soon. I'd say if you're definitely one of those non-competing teams and you're trying to sell somebody like Whitehead and nobody will give you a 4th, I might get Killebrew.
Get Killebrew and offer like a 5th for their 4th.
Yeah. But, I think that's a nice trade right there. I know DBs are worth less, but I'm not sure how much Whitehead's going to be worth next year.
And I mean, if Levy keeps with the injuries, the safeties are going to eat, and Killebrew is pretty damn good tackler.
Yeah.
So let's move on to another. Is he legit? And let's hit up Tyler's best friend, Shane Ray. Ooh. Now I don't know if you know this, but when we were doing a live draft thing when Shane Ray got drafted, and there was no rusher that Tyler hated more in that draft class than Shane Ray. And Tyler's a diehard Broncos fan. The anger in his face, I could feel it coming through my computer. But he had 3 solos, 3 assists, and 3 sacks.
Oh, yeah.
Is that legit, or is that just...
I don't know. He's a rushed linebacker. I mean, even if he is the second coming of Ware or Von Miller, I don't know what I'd spend on him. I mean, honestly, when Shaq Barrett plays out there, he actually does okay too. I mean, Denver's just such a good defense that I can't take anything away from Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. They're incredible players. I don't mean to take anything away from them, but I think that defense is built for those edge guys to really be advantaged a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like any edge rusher would do well in that system, but I don't think any of them are going to look like Von Miller either. Miller is – I mean, he should have been the first linebacker taken with the first overall pick in how many years? If Cam Newton hadn't just come out of nowhere with a crazy season, Von Miller would have been the locked and loaded number 1 pick that year.
Yeah.
And it would have been well-deserved. Von Miller has been a monster since high school.
It's interesting. This change is making me feel like I'm stupid because, I thought I was in love with Beasley, and I thought Shane Ray was a joke, and it's, this is kind of on its head now, right?
Yeah, I'm still not sure how I feel about Shane Ray. I think this was just one of those weeks where everything went his way. He got the matchups he needed. I don't know that he's, Josh Perry bad, but he's also not 3 sacks, 3 solos, and 3 assists good.
Well, I mean that's we've talked about this before. That's a nice outing. That's not it's not repeatable, or at least not repeatable consistently, because that's an insane amount of sacks.
But I will, and by that I don't necessarily mean like in a week, but I don't think that kind of sack number is. I think we're looking at like a 10 sack ceiling for a season for Ray.
Right.
So the fact that he got 3 of them in one game just means he's going to go a lot more games without them.
Yeah, and I think if you play in a big play league, I mean, odds are, who knows what's going to happen. I guess the big takeaway is, where is 34? He is a free agent next year. So, they let Marshall walk. So there's a chance that, they could let Ware walk, I guess, if they feel like they have enough in Ray. So if you're playing a big play league, I guess you could spend up and anticipate that now.
You mean they let Trevathan walk?
Sorry, they let Trevathan walk.
Yeah,
I think
that happened just because they couldn't afford to pay both of them.
Well, they had, I think, 5 of the front 7 were free agents or RFAs.
Yeah, and let's see, they re-signed Wolf.
Yeah,
they obviously re-signed Miller. Ware still had a couple of years. Had a year.
They re-signed Marshall.
Yep, and I mean I feel like they re-signed Marshall just because they could get him for cheaper than Trevathan, and the talent difference is not. It is barely noticeable. They're both.
But they let Jackson walk.
Yeah, but that was going to happen just because he was going to get fucking paid.
Well, he did get fucking paid.
Well, that's what I meant. Like there was no way he wasn't getting paid. They couldn't afford to pay him and Miller and Marshall, and still trying to figure out something at quarterback.
So let's move on to another sack artist. I looked up the spelling or the pronunciation, so let's see if I can get this one right. It's Yannick Ngakoue from Jacksonville. He's been playing a ton of snaps lately. He's actually had the highest percentage of snaps in week 3. That's up from 66%. It was 88% this year. He's playing really ahead of Fowler. Now, I'm not sure whether that huge snap count is because Odrick was out or what the real story is, though. But his pass rush skills are legit. I actually thought in the pre-draft process, I liked him a lot, but I thought he might play Sam linebacker. This is proving me very wrong on that fact. But I think he's more of a big play league asset, to be honest, because his tackle floor is zilch.
Yeah, I think he's eventually going to be a very usable asset. I wouldn't count on him in the short term. I think, we got to see a flash of him, but, I feel like that's going to be few and far between in the early going. And
he does have that all-important DE designation.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully he keeps that, because if he goes to linebacker, he's borderline trash.
Yeah, well, being in a what we're calling a 4-3. I hate that we do this. Teams run 3-4s and 4-3s all the time, and we call them a base set, but we're calling them a base 4-3. So I think he'll hold it for a while.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to continue to outsnap Fowler. I think Fowler is entirely too talented to keep off the field. I think this was just
maybe Fowler moves to Sam or some type of auto or something like your boy Bree says.
Say that. Oh, if like as much as I love Danielle Hunter, him being an LSU guy, I love Dante Fowler. I had him as like DN7 after he got drafted. Like I've been crazy high on him for a long, long time, and I just refuse to accept anything bad that anyone has to say about him. And that's my problem, is I have absolutely no ability to remove bias. There's a lot of bias. Like sometimes I've got like no opinion about things, but that is very rare. Normally I take a hard line stance on everything.
Yeah.
like you just brought up, there's the, everybody runs 4-3 and 3-4. For those of you out there advocating for the edge designation, and I really hope you're not one of them, but you can all go fuck yourselves. All you're going to do is make that shit more complicated, because then, do we have to designate between inside and outside linebackers? Or 5 techs and 3 techs and nickel corner? And no. There's already people not wanting to get an IDP because they think it's difficult. I would rather them not like IDP because one time one of their players got switched to linebacker from defensive end than be like, hey, here's 11 positions you need to learn. Have fun.
Yeah. No, it's a mess. I mean, I've thought about it. I mean, I like the idea of edge, but when you sit down and go through it, actually, it just creates more problems, because then you get confused. The 5 techs confuse you then. So what are 5 techs? Are they edges? Does that mean 3 teams have DTs? Or what does that mean? So it complicates the issue a lot and throws value for a circle. And the real problem is, I mean, we could play with edge, but they don't designate the difference between inside and outside backers, at least on MFL. Excuse me. So it makes it near impossible to do it anyways. I toyed with the idea on a league of just saying, look, you start 7 guys in the box. I don't care whether the linebackers or defensive ends or defensive linemen, and you start 4 DBs and you just go from there. But the problem, and then I do some type of scoring where you have to get so many sacks and you have to get so many passes defended, which would make people use different positions. But even that's a freaking mess.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way to make it clean and easy. Like the way we're doing it now is about as close as you're going to get it. And even then, we still have the problem where the best cornerbacks in the league are essentially unstartable in IDP.
Yeah.
And it's really the only position like that. The best wide receivers in the game, for the most part, are showing up in the box score. Except for, and please don't take this as me saying Torrey Smith is a great wide receiver, but he is one of those guys that if he got points for pass interference calls, he'd be a wide receiver 1, especially when he was with Baltimore.
Yeah. So we have one more defensive player to cover, and then I think you wanted to actually cover some offensive players. I'll attempt to hang with you on those. We'll see how well I do. And that's Olivier Vernon. Excuse me, I'm hanging in there. I'm not dying yet. He's kind of disappointed this year. So what do you think? Is he a target to go get?
I absolutely do. And if you can get him at a 10% discount right now, I'm doing it, because JPP's just been balling out like he used to, and great. That doesn't make Vernon any less valuable. I don't think JPP's stealing work from Vernon. I think Vernon has just kind of gotten the shit side of the stick, these last few weeks. I don't expect to see that every week. He's an extremely talented player. He's worth every penny New York paid for him. And there's going to be weeks where JPP and Vernon eat. And I would go out there and pay DN1 prices for Vernon pretty comfortably, especially now that more and more of our defensive linemen are getting beat up. Watt going on IR. And I mean, Watt going on IR, that essentially makes that defensive line just completely disgusting for IDP purposes, right?
Oh yeah, it's a complete mess. Did we talk about McKinney earlier? We wanted to talk about him.
I don't think. I think we did. I think we touched on him a little bit, but let's rehash it in case we didn't.
So McKinney's confusing to me. It's interesting. I've seen the most polarizing articles, so I try to read as much as I can, just because I enjoy other people's viewpoints, even if I disagree with them. But I've seen buy McKinney now articles because J.J. Watt's out and that line can't do anything, so McKinney's got to get tackles. And I've also seen articles that said, like our boy Breeze, look, McKinney's not that good at football. You need to sell McKinney now. What boat are you in, Drew?
I am in the boat that floats right in between those other two boats. Whereas I agree with Breeze and Tyler, where I don't think McKinney is that talented of a linebacker. But the situation can't be ignored. He's going to eat for the rest of this year. So if I've got a competing team, I'm holding on to him with both hands and just until my knuckles are white, because he's going to be an extremely usable linebacker.
Yeah, I think he's definitely usable this year, and he's probably easily sellable in the offseason. I think enough people still like him. I was actually surprised how low he was. I went back and looked at DLF's and FF Couch Coach's preseason rankings, and McKinney was down in the 40s. I was higher on McKinney than that. But if you can get good value for him, I can see doing that, but he's going to do pretty well. My big concern would be is if this line gets any worse. Breeze has pointed this out. He still struggles. I mean, he has really long arms, and he struggles getting off blocks still. So if he really struggles getting off blocks, that may cap his tackle ceiling.
Yeah, I mean you pretty much said it. I still think regardless of whether he has issues getting off tackles, he's gonna have more than enough to be IDP relevant. Yeah. And let me pull up these. We're gonna knock out a couple of quick offense questions, and we're doing this because I apologize to everyone. We haven't had a chance to get an offense podcast out there. Sticky and I have been working on trying to make our schedules match up, and it hasn't happened. We've both had to cancel on each other a couple times because family stuff gets in the way, and family comes first. I mean, we love you guys, but like they come first. So
yeah.
So I'm probably we're trying to do one soon. If not, I'll probably, pull some of our other buddies and make them talk with me. But first question is for Dynasty. How old do you bail on a stud wide receiver? And for me, it's kind of fluid. 27 is when I start considering it, and then the urgency of it is completely based on the player. Like AJ Green, and I'm not just saying this because he's having a baller-ass night, but if I'm competing, I'm holding on to AJ Green even if I'm getting, a really strong offer for him. Whereas, Calvin, I was selling Calvin off at 29 because he's had these ticky-tacky injuries his entire career because of, how he played. He was constantly just getting destroyed. And you could see him slowly taking their toll, whereas AJ, for the most part, has remained healthy. So it's very player dependent for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. But for me, that age is around 27 that I start looking at it. If he's 27 and I'm not competing, that's odds are you can get full value for him. Because if he's 29, most people are kind of, I don't know if he's going to be around for a while. So 27 is kind of that breaking point. Now, if I'm competing, I'll ride him out until he's 28, 29. Unless, and I may even ride him out longer. If I don't have youth behind him to kind of step up and take that spot, I may ride him off into the sunset. But I think 27 is the number for me where I'm like, hey, if I'm not competing, it's time to go get full value. Because you could have got full value for AJ Green, I feel like. And this season that you could have cashed out big time, where I think in probably next year, it's going to start getting a little more questionable whether you can cash out for absolute value because Green will be, Green's 28 right now. He just turned 28 in June. So Green's a really good example.
Honestly, I mean, if you're getting full value for AJ Green, you had to sell 2 years ago. That was back when he was, a top 5 pick, but it's kind of hard to predict those stuff. He got overtaken by these 2014 wide receivers, and
you play in all these youth crazy leagues. AJ Green was, a lot of people would have paid a lot for AJ Green this year. Competing teams.
They would have paid a ton, but if you're looking at full value, AJ Green wasn't going for top 5 player value, this past offseason, and that's based off ADP more so than my experience. And ADP isn't, you can't live and die by ADP, but it's a decent example.
Yeah, I got to look up ADP now. I'm going to look up the September ADP. I'm curious where Green is.
He was probably around 12 to 14 overall. But
6th.
Really?
6th.
Under who? Over who?
So people that are behind him are Gurley, Zeke, Evans, Cooper. I know a lot of people would probably take Evans and Cooper behind him. David Johnson, Sammy Watkins, Keenan Allen, Gronk, Dez, Alshon.
Yeah, I guess for the most part, like Evans and Coop, I would
Cooks.
definitely take over him. Cooks and AJ are right next to each other in my rankings, but
Yeah. So I guess that's my point. So 27, 28, I think that's your window to cash out if you're not competing.
I agree with that. And if you are competing, then I'm looking at about 29. When he hits 29, I'm shopping. If I can't get close to what I want for him, or I'm kind of selling at 80 cents on the dollar, I'm riding him out.
So let's look at ADP. The first guy that's over 30, over 29 is 26th, which is Jordy Nelson in the September ADP. So you have to go down to 26 to find a guy, older than 29. And then you start finding a whole bunch of them. Brandon Marshall was at 30 and he's 32.
Yeah. Brandon Marshall, his value got suppressed for a long time because of, moving to New York and playing with Jay Cutler had a negative connotation to it. Even though he was balling out with Jay Cutler, it's just like, I feel like Brandon Marshall for most of his career has been criminally underrated. But that kind of hits that up pretty well. We're going to do a quick candy question because we know how much you love candy questions. He wants to know.
I'm seething. I'm angry.
Good. What are your marshmallow takes? Love them or hate them? For me, if it's a peep, it's fucking disgusting. Get it on my face. If it's marshmallows and Lucky Charms and I get them soaked up with some milk, those are awesome. Regular marshmallows don't really do anything for me. That's about all I got, except for s'mores. S'mores are awesome.
Holy shit. Like, if you would have asked me, name, things marshmallows are in, there's no way I would have came up with all that. I was like, how do you have a marshmallow take? They're like these white things that don't taste very good. Are you kidding me? I didn't even know.
Oh, it's because you're just an old curmudgeon.
I am an old curmudgeon.
All right, so we got one last offense question. We're going to call it a night. Who has the most talent out of this bunch? Alex Collins, Kenyon Drake, Jonathan Williams. Hit me.
Talent. That's tricky. I know some people are Williams fans. I'm going to go with Drake. And maybe I'm taking this question in a different direction. But Drake was a high draft pick. And that's really, when all else is, equal, give me the guy with the draft capital because I think he's going to get the most opportunities. I haven't been super impressed, but I mean, this guy was picked 73 overall. I didn't love his game at Alabama, but of those three, that's who I like. Williams, you might be able to convince me on, but Alex Collins, no freaking way. And that's really because when you watch his tape, or at least when I watch his tape, I know some people like him, but you watch his tape, you're like, oh, he's got some nice vision. Oh, that was a nice jump cut. Oh, look at that move. And then they're really great things. But we talked about this earlier. It's like Tecmo Bowl to me. When Tecmo Bowl starts cheating, when you're doing really, really well, it's like the whole field just catches up to him like a wave because that's how slow he is overall. Like, he looks good if you just focus on him. But if you zoom out, you're like, hey, that defensive lineman's catching up to him. That's interesting.
Okay, so we're going to go in order. I'm going to agree with you. Kenyon Drake is the clear-cut number one, not just in talent, but in terms of, fantasy potential. He's got a much higher PPR ceiling than either of the other two. He's a legit 3-down running back, but he's also not, I think I had him as my 6th or 7th running back overall pre-draft, and his draft position definitely helped, but I'm still, I'm not all in on him like Tyler is. Jonathan Williams, there, like you said, there's people that are high on him, but I'm not one of them. I would much rather have Alex Collins. Most of y'all that listen to the offensive show know I'm kind of an Alex Collins fanboy, or I was pre-draft. After watching him go low, it didn't go so well, but I think I had him as high as RB4 at one point. He was actually my RB3 before I watched Jordan Howard, and then I fell in love with Jordan Howard. But he always came off as an Isaiah Crowell light to me, especially in that first 10 yards. An extremely powerful, punishing runner. but he doesn't have that home run ability that Isaiah Crowell had. You know, if you compare the tape, they look very similar.
Oh yeah, he's totally Isaiah Crowell with a parachute behind him. That's how I see him.
I can get behind that. I like that take. And he wants to know, is Kenneth Dixon a buy, hold, or sell?
So I liked Kenneth Dixon pre-draft, and then he went to Baltimore, and I don't know, like sometimes when everyone just gets overly excited about someone, it turns me off a little bit. So I kind of got out on I don't think I own him anywhere just because everyone was so stoked about him. And I'm like, well, I liked him. I just didn't love him. So I don't think you're going to be able to buy him because it's like the what was the take earlier? Who we were talking about? Somebody that you're not. Oh, Stuart Cravens. If he's on a roster, they are a believer, and he's going to be hard to buy low. And he's threatening now. Redraft people are trading for him. There's no way you're buying him low right now.
You're 100% correct. If you can, absolutely go for it. Otherwise, if you already own him, hold him because the competition isn't really that strong there. Justin Forsett has not looked like he did in the last year or two, and even then, Forsett was already old, so the decline was gonna come. There's no other real competition. I love Terrence West, and I love him at his value, but he's not going to be 300 carry wide receiver, running back, whatever the hell the position is. And my favorite part about the entire Baltimore running back situation is like I occasionally like to toot my own horn, and I say occasionally in quotes because I'm bad about it, but I was so fucking right about Buck Allen being a gigantic piece of shit. There were legit people that have respected takes in the Dynasty community that had Buck Allen at like RB 4 or 5.
No, I did. So I liked Buck Allen. I liked him and I liked him from a sheer metrics point of view. He had very nice weight-adjusted agility, and weight-adjusted agility has been shown to be somewhat of a predictor of future NFL success. So, but I didn't have him that high. I took him because he was cheap in rookie drafts, and I've held on to him because I've never been able to sell him. It's a shame that I haven't really been able to use him other than like end of last year when he was getting 9 gajillion catches. But Kenneth Dixon for me is a sell high. If he hits this year and has a couple good games, I would sell him. I'm interested in his talent level, but this comes back to the fact that the 2017 running back class is going to fuck up the landscape. It's going to absolutely fuck it up. In general, if it's not Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson or Zeke Elliott, I will sell them any running back for a reasonable price because everything is going to get fucked up.
Yep. And when I say hold, I mean hold right now, right this second. I'm treating Kenneth Dixon exactly like I'm treating Perryman. As soon as they have a couple good games and the hype gets for real, buy. Because, like you said, there's 5 running backs in the league right now that I would say with a 95% chance are not going to get fucked over by this 2017 class. Potentially. Even like guys I love, like Carlos Hyde, have some percentage chance of getting fucked over by this class. It's pretty much Zeke, Gurley, Bell, Johnson, Miller. And the only reason Miller's in that list is because he got paid.
He got paid
so much money.
And he's playing well. He's playing pretty well.
He's not. He's really not.
Really? You don't
have
think
you
so?
Have you been watching the games?
Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of room to run. I think he's done what he could with what he has.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but he hasn't made more than what was, what he was able to get.
Okay. I don't disagree with that, and throwing out the RotoViz stat or whatever is that they often talk about points over expectation. He's been hitting, he's been getting the yards he was allowed. I agree, but if you give the kid space, I mean, I think he can still work. And I still like Miller. I like him short term. I like him long term.
eventually something's going to change. He's going to start having good games. It just hasn't happened yet, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Anything interesting happened at the end of this Dolphins game besides the Dolphins losing? Oh, that's one thing I would like to bring up. Those color rush uniforms are the ugliest fucking thing I have ever seen. Like, I know you didn't get to watch the game, but it is like, did you watch the Jaguars-Titans game last year where they had the color rush uniforms?
Oh, yeah.
100 times worse than either of them. Even than like this like dirty gold color. It is like safety orange with a hint of just brown.
Yeah, I prefer the hideous throwback uniforms over them.
Oh, it's so not good. I almost looked I was looking at the Miami defense, and I'm like, wow, somebody had some good. Like, no, Burfict finished with 2 and 1 and a deflection. So, not bad. Geno Atkins had a sack and a half. So, yay him. And Carlos Dunlap had 2 sacks.
There you go.
Yeah.
Carlos Dunlap, the 67-year-old player.
Right.
Right. The old Dunlap, not the young Dunlap. Okay.
Right.
Page there.
I hate everything.
It's 27-year-old. All right.
So that's pretty much going to be up for it for us. I know we said we were going to do a short show, but I'm not going to blame Eric at all for this because I'm the one who doesn't know how to stop running his fucking mouth. But and I've also just had just terrible language since I started recording with you. Maybe it's just because I don't know. I can't get as creative in how I insult you as I can with Tyler.
So just swear at me. That'll cover it up.
Right. That's kind of what I'm going for. Like if I cannot dig at you like at your core as a person, then I guess
I think it's wearing off on me. I dropped more F-bombs during this episode than I drop in the month normally. I think we're feeding off of each other. And Bill Lattin pointing that out. He's like, yeah, just be careful. Their show is definitely R-rated.
Yeah, he said PG-13, maybe R-rated. I'm like, maybe. I mean, I don't think there's any other fantasy football podcast out there that is so openly used some of the words we use. And no, almost none of them are like hate speech. I don't know if you consider cunt hate speech, but that's like my favorite word. I can't not say it. It's such a good word.
All right,
I'm making Eric blush. That's awesome.
All right, can we close it up?
I guess. All right, guys. It's sorry for the late episode this week. We're still probably gonna put another one out Monday and cover over everything that happened this past weekend because I'm sure everything's gonna be crazy again. Thanks for listening. If you like what we do, I'd really appreciate if y'all went on iTunes, gave us a rating and review. If not, fucking I'll live. But yeah.
And a shout out. If you're interested in a specific guest, I mean, I think we want to drag some people on. So let us know who you'd be interested in, especially IDP folks that you don't normally hear on pods. We have a list of who we want to bring on, but who you guys are interested in, that'll help us too.
Yeah, that'll just push names to the top of the list. Like if we already had him, it's like, okay, we'll go after him next. Hopefully we can get him on because normally we record like during the fourth quarter of the Monday night game, and I know there's a lot of people who don't want to record during football, so we'll have to see how that goes. If anything, you might just be listening to us to run our faces for the rest of the season. So
right.
It's been a bunch of fun. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. This has been the IDP Playbook. I've been your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me has been my co-host, Eric. You can find him on Twitter at UtahEC.
Boom.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week.